All right. We'll get to Dr. Wadi in a bit. So I would like you to react to that.
Okay, please, can you?
External borrowing, how bad is it?
It's not particularly bad. It's for strategic purpose. Apart from the fact that you have a need for it, it's compulsory because you don't have the funds locally or within the public sector, the public finance. You also gain a lot by borrowing. Like I said earlier, they always come with good moratorium. Probably don't pay for first 3, 4, 5 years. You're allowed to use that to regenerate that capital. That's number one. Number two is interest rate is always relatively lower than what we get locally. Currently, if you are issuing any investment instrument, for instance, in Nigeria, it goes for as much as 24%, 25, 26% also. But you can get that cheaper from abroad. It comes to sometimes 2%, 5%. You expect government to jump at that as much as possible. But there is a little problem. Our ability to increase our loan stock. Our loan stock is growing faster than our revenue. It's out to generate revenue from it. So government must strike a balance. Government must be able to reorder its funding dynamics, looking at the opportunities, the abundant opportunities which we have in the private sector and which we have in foreign investors, what foreign investors can bring in. And you know, Nigeria is an attraction, and that attraction is the market is big, the needs are there, the capacity for people to play in the Nigerian market is big. You have a robust capital market. It has also shown over the time that if you have a good instrument, people will embrace it, people will buy into it. So government must be able to strike a balance between borrowing, number one, borrowing from abroad, and non-borrowing interventions, such as converting your infrastructural needs to investment instruments. The opportunities
That's what
are
you
there.
mean by non-borrowing interventions.
For instance, we want to build roads. Let me put it, Lagos-Calabar Highway. You can get foreign investors to do this. You can also get local investors to come in and partner with them. In addition to that, you can even break these things down to investment instruments, derivatives, which you, an ordinary man on the street, you and I, can also buy into, can convert them to investment instruments. So when you have this, there is this high sense of ownership that comes with it. We own it.
Yeah, it's ours.
It is ours. Then people begin to have this protection, give it extra protection, don't damage what belongs to all of us, protect it, use it very well. People begin to complain where necessary. People, you know, when you have that sense of ownership with a larger congregation of the public, it makes your job easy. Then another thing which government will probably need to work on is the orientation. It's changing gradually. People are beginning to view infrastructure differently. People are beginning to have a shift. You know, when Lekki Epe Expressway was done, the opposition to it was strong, but it was a good way to test what the market would do or not. And people are now looking at, instead of rejecting this package, why don't you look at the content? Number one, you look at the cost of doing that project, the internal rate of return, the tenure of that project, and co. So the awareness is high. People are more interested. People are more committed, more interested, and government should take advantage of that. There is no amount of borrowing we can do from abroad that can actually help us to fill the gaps which we have. We are talking about over $3 trillion or thereabouts. We have just 30% of our GDP in our infrastructure stock compared to most countries, where they have about 70%. So we have a long way to go. And government cannot continue to borrow because the capacity to generate revenue to sustain those borrowings, they are not
Perhaps
there.
It's clear, and that's why the minister is promising the World Bank that now we want to borrow less. But how crucial is sustainable debt management, especially in light of volatility, exchange rate volatility?
Well, you see, it's also a component of the larger reforms which President Tinubu has brought on board. And when he decided to allow the Naira to find its own value, its inherent value, people misconstrued that to mean that government was abandoning the people to their fate. But we've seen now, for instance, number one, the actual value of the naira, that it's not as it's not the heavyweight we thought it was. It was a paperweight. It was only sustained by government continuous intervention or incessant intervention. Over the years, we've seen the reality. And we've now moved to a new era whereby the work we put into it will determine the result we get. So we are beginning to have relative stability in terms of foreign exchange. We are not likely to have it dropping down or rising very quickly. The volatility is gone, as it is now from what we've had in the last 45 days. In terms of volatility, we've gone beyond that. In terms of speculative activities of the naira, we are beginning to win the game. So what we need now is stability, not necessarily naira becoming 800 naira to $1 tomorrow. And no, we are beginning to record a high level of stability. And that's good for foreign investors. It's good for local investors too.
But how do Nigerians understand that what we need now, I mean, if you as an economist, you're saying this, how do Nigerians understand that what we need now is stability?
Yeah, it's key because we've seen the nakedness of our system. We've seen that without government using its little resources from oil and gas and other means to hold the naira, the naira and sustain the ostentatious living of the very rich who sustain their lifestyle based on foreign commodities, government can do something differently. Get on board and do the work, develop agriculture, develop exports, make sure that the naira achieves relative stability and it reflects its true value, inherent value, not artificial value like we have had in the past. And you see, everybody in the world, the foreign investors they are all watching, they all have the capacity to determine using figures what the value of the naira should be. In the past, they are always in confusion whether what government said it was real. But now they are beginning to look at it like it reflects reality. And so we are going to have a new era, I suppose, whereby foreign investors will come because now naira is becoming stable and naira is reflecting its true value. If, for instance, you're an investor, 2 years ago you brought in your investment and you changed naira, for instance, at 800 naira, let's say a year ago, to $1. And today it's 1,490 or hovering around 1,500. You want to take your investment back to where you brought it from, you got your certificate of capital importation and go. You are at a disadvantage, heavy loss, because there was no stability, because there was fluctuation, there was volatility. But what government and the CBN has achieved, which should be known to everybody, to the investment public, is that they've been able to achieve a relative level of stability in the last 45 days. And government has developed the capacity, going by current trends, level of inflow against outflow, given the current level of foreign exchange reserves, that naira will be stable in the course of the year.